Good afternoon, or morning, I should say, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the opportunities and challenges of exporting to the Middle East. The Middle East is a complex and diverse region and represents significant opportunities for the UK's exporters. Within the Middle East, there is the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, which is a bloc of 6 nations with which the UK is currently negotiating a free trade agreement. UK to GCC trade is already valued at 57 billion a year, and a new deal could boost the UK economy by 1.6 billion pounds. However, with the ongoing stability, sanctions, and geopolitical issues, it certainly isn't the easiest region to break into and understand. So we brought this webinar to you to help you understand more about the region. My name is Phil Adnet. I'm a senior editor here at the Chartered Institute of Export. I'm delighted to be able to host today's webinar, but I'll mostly be handing off to our panel of experts. First up, we have our sponsor for today's webinar, Aramex. We have Umar with us. Umar is Aramex's regional CEO, while Jaris, the regional commercial director for Middle East, Aramex in the Middle East, should be joining us shortly. Umar, how are you today?
Very well, thank you, Phil. And thank you very much for having us today to talk about the Middle East.
Perfect. We're really delighted to have you on board. Secondly, we have the Chartered Institute's own Andy Bridges. Andy, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Phil. Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for having, pleasure to have you with us. And thirdly, we were supposed to have Victoria Balderson, founder and CEO of Balls Global. However, Victoria won't be with us today, but we do have a video from her, which you will see shortly. But on the next slide, you'll see the first of our polls, which I'll just launch for you now. If you're watching this on our YouTube live stream, just be aware you won't be able to participate in the polls, but we'll be able to join the rest of the webinar. Do you currently trade with the Middle East? So yes, you trade a lot. Yes, you trade a little bit. Not yet, but we're considering it. And no, we're not considering it at the moment. Just while that runs through, I'd like to go through our normal housekeeping notes. Firstly, just a reminder, there will be a Q&A section. Please keep your questions as general and broad as possible to give everyone the best chance of answering them. We won't be hosting, this won't be a consultancy, so there won't be the chance to go in depth onto any company specific or sector topics. So if you keep them as broad as possible, it gives the best chance of answering as many. Also, shorter questions tend to be, I tend to prioritize them because they're just a bit easier to read. Finally, we will be sharing a copy of the slides and the video shortly after the presentation. Most of you already voted. Thank you for everyone who has. So I'm just going to close and share the results now. 3, 2, 1. So 50% say they're considering trading a little bit. 25% say they're not yet considering, they're not yet trading, but are considering launching a business in the Middle East. And 25% say they are trading a lot in the Middle East. Omar, is that the sort of thing you're expecting? That sort of answer to the polls?
Yeah, most definitely, Phil. If we look at some of our customer base in the UK and Europe, we are starting to see a lot more consideration into the Middle East, and I'll cover some of that on some of my slides. But I'm a little bit surprised about 25% not considering it. So it'd be good to get into that a little bit later.
I'm sure we will. In a second, I'll hand over to you, Omar. But firstly, we have a video from Victoria Balderson. Again, apologies she can't be with us today, but she did pass on this introduction. So I'm just going to play the video for you now.
My name's Victoria Balderson and I'm the founder of Bols Global. Essentially, we are an international trade consultancy and an export solutions provider. We, over the years, have gained specialisms and a niche, I would say, in the Middle East and particularly within the GCC, the Gulf Cooperative Council within the Middle East. And we help companies predominantly with navigating these markets in the Gulf region and helping with market access, market entry, and finding the right ways to enter and achieve long-term success in the markets within this region. Well, a lot of it depends, obviously, on the types of products, if we're talking about exporting different products, and where those consumers would be. Obviously, within the region, there's a multitude of countries here. I'm currently in Dubai in the UAE, and if we take, for example, the UAE, whilst a lot of countries, and particularly the UK, might automatically go for a digital first approach, here actually in the region, whilst there has been a huge acceleration, particularly post-COVID, of online platforms, and that area is booming, it's fair to say that the bricks and mortar side of things and, going physically into stores here in retail is still the predominant way in which people like to experience and buy products. So that tends to be a preferred route to market. Now, entering those retail channels, if you have a product for retail, can be done in lots of different ways. It can be done potentially direct in some cases to retailers, whether they be pharmacy retailers, grocery retailers, specialty retailers. Some of the larger players can take and import products directly. Others can't or prefer to work through local vendors, and that would be then where companies would seek to find a local partner, usually based here, like a distributor who would take title of goods and sell them on for the margins that they require, or agents as well who can find customers here and obviously transact through percentages as well. There are obviously other companies, buying groups, consolidators as well, that people can obviously sell to domestically in the UK, who also then carry goods into this region and supply customers that they have here as well. So a number of options. I think a lot of it is very dependent on the product, and also very much looking at where your customers, your target customers in these markets are purchasing and what their purchasing behaviours are here, which may differ obviously from the domestic market. I think that's always, particularly in this region, in this part of the world, this is often the challenge that a lot of exporters face, because finding the right fit and the right trusted partner here in the region can be quite difficult, because it's not maybe readily, easily accessible, the contacts, the right people to deal with, and also not knowing, if you're new to the region, who are the trusted players here. And it's fair to say that from experience as well, we've seen a lot of clients in the past who have been burnt by getting into trading relationships here in the region, where they have been found it difficult to understand some of the information that's been given. Some of the ways in working haven't necessarily rung true. So it is always, for us, when we deal with clients and the work we do, the biggest part of it is ensuring that we find the right partners to enter the market with. Now, that can be done in a number of ways, and actually, if you don't have, and you're starting from fresh and you don't have an existing network, it really is starting to build that network in a number of ways. That can be through obviously your own research and your own business network back in the UK. Particularly, increasingly more people are looking at this region, so people do have contacts here. There are obviously a number of expats living here, and even if they're people not within your sector from a business perspective, they may still know of people, be able to provide introductions or nuggets of information around potential retail outlets that might be a good fit for your product, for example. There is obviously as well government organisations, the British Embassy here in the region, in each country, again, can usually validate or provide some initial source of contacts for you that, again, are trusted people that they know, that operate obviously here in this part of the world. Local government, chambers of commerce as well. But like I say, you're leveraging your own business network, or not being afraid to get on certain platforms like LinkedIn and actually going to seek out through research that you might have found target organizations, people working within those organizations, connecting with them, and just being able to ask questions around finding the right people and potentially trying to secure, even if it's virtual meetings to start with, or some initial correspondence through digitally to see if there is any opportunity there. I would always say that every kind of conversation you can have when you're trying to develop and explore a new market can be valuable. And, you know, if you're clear on your questions, what you want to achieve and where you want to go, helping by having conversations with people can really help to provide you with some answers along the way as well, or lead to another conversation, which could eventually lead to another conversation that ultimately leads to some opportunities being developed. So, you know, there are a number of resources out there as well online. I would say people that can give information, people like ourselves at Bolts Global and other organisations that can help accelerate and help navigate some of those challenges as well. Yeah, I mean, there is. I mean, certainly if you look at the economies here in the Middle East, within the Gulf region, there is growth. Where obviously globally there isn't others at the moment, so that there is economic growth here. There are still, however, challenges. Whilst there is people here with disposable income, there is still also a number of people living and working here who do not have that level of disposable income, who are here primarily for working reasons. So there is a real mixed bag around. Yes, there is an appetite and there is disposable income, so there is an appetite and opportunity for luxury goods for sure across the region. However, also not to necessarily consider that everybody here is going to be wealthy enough to be able to afford premium gourmet products, for example. And there are still people here that very much will value getting a deal, getting discounts, and getting good value for what they're earning here as well. So I think it's looking at both areas, but yeah, there definitely is, I would say, more disposable income and more luxury opportunities than other parts of the world at the moment. I think this again is it can be tricky because obviously we talk about the Middle East. That's well, depending on how you define it, that can be anything up to 20 plus countries. Then if we hone in on, say, the Gulf region that we work a lot in, that's usually 6 countries. But again, every country has its own idiosyncrasies and its own way of working, has its own regulatory frameworks. So if you're looking to export, you need to make sure within each market, the products are obviously registered, documentation is appropriate, and that can vary from one market to another. Everything from, you know, food items that require Arabic labels. It may be that one version is acceptable, say in the UAE, but in Saudi Arabia, they will not accept that same Arabic translation for a number of reasons. So for me, it's important that people that are looking to enter the region do take it by a market by market approach, and don't try and see the region as completely homogenous, because it isn't. You know, when you know, just as a prime example, when you look at, say, the demographics within, say, the UAE here, you know, growing population, 11 million, largely working population, very male dominated when you look at the split between genders, and also very, very expat driven. So 90% are expats living here from around the world, and only a very small percentage of local population. On the flip side, when you are looking at, say, Saudi Arabia, again, another big market and economy that people are targeting, a much bigger population of heading towards 40 million in the next few years. Again, a very young population, even younger than the UAE, there's a lot of people under 30, but again, it's young families, and it's a very local, by contrast, a very local population. So it's a lot of local Saudis, which you would then be, again, if it's consumer goods that you were operating in, for example, you would be targeting a much younger local population. So again, that then will change the way that you would approach those markets. So my advice would be to say, yes, entering one market may help some of your understanding of how the region operates, but every market is different, and how you operate and the routes to market, the type of consumers will differ from one to the other as well. So treat every market differently, as it should be.
Thank you, everyone, for your time in that video. I'm just going to bring these slides up again, and they'll be with you in a second. And at that point, I'm going to hand over to Omar on the next slide. Omar, over to you.
Hello, good afternoon, or rather good morning, good afternoon, and good day, depending on where in the world you're based. Firstly, I'd just like to thank the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade for hosting today's webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to be here speaking with you all about a region that's close to our hearts as Aramex, and that's the Middle East. So you've had an introduction on myself by Phil. If we move on to the next slide. Who is Aramex? So just to give you guys a bit of an overview, Aramex is a global logistics and supply chain solution provider. We're publicly listed in the Dubai financial market, and our business was established around 43 years ago in Amman in Jordan. The vision, very simply, was to connect the Middle East to the rest of the world. And we started with the US, and Aramex today stands for Arab American Express. Today, we're present in 70 plus countries with 600 offices offering products across the supply chain from air, ocean, land, warehousing and logistics, as well as international express. If we move on to the next slide. We, as Aramex, and especially myself, when I'm sitting in front of customers, partners, and potential providers, I often describe Aramex as a regional player with global presence. So we, as an organization, 40 plus years, have deep roots and large-scale operations across the Middle East and North Africa, which ultimately remains the core market for our business and our customers. Having a deep understanding of the region's logistics landscapes, regulations, and customer behavior really allows us a competitive edge over some of our global competitors. Despite being regionally focused, Aramex has expanded globally, as you can see through the map, and we've made a number of acquisitions, partnerships across the world. So why the Middle East? If we turn into the next slide. Perfect. Well, today, in an increasing interconnected global economy, geopolitical stability plays a pivotal role in shaping not only business strategy, but also investment decisions. We're all aware of the recent unrest and uncertainty that sits in the United States, which have prompted many UK businesses to reassess their exposure to the American market. Now, whilst the US remains a critical economic partner, evolving risks highlight the importance of diversification and resilience planning. We, as Aramex, see the Middle East, in particular the GCC, as a viable opportunity for UK businesses seeking a stable, growth-oriented environment. With favourable regulatory changes, expanding customer bases, and strong trade ties with the UK, we position the Middle East as a way of mitigating risk to some of the mature markets that sit in the Western world. Now, today, these markets are not emerging markets in the traditional form. These are high-spending, logistics-savvy economies with young population and digital-first behaviours. Today, the Middle East is ideal for UK exporters looking for sustainable growth. If we roll on to the next slide. So what are the advantages, right? When we look at the GCC, and if we go on to the next slide, we see a number of advantages standing out against several other regions. So what we try to do is take a number of regions and overlay some of the key considerations that you need to take. So first, the ease of doing business. It can be easy to navigate some of the regulations that sit within each of the individual GCC councils. That, of course, is by having the right partners in place. More importantly, government initiatives make market entry smoother than you may expect. We have Saudi Arabia Vision 2030 and also UAE 2031, examples of vision-led economies focused on economic growth, social progress, and global connectivity. In a number of the GCC states, you'll also have low entry charges by way of customs import and duties. What we see is quite high de minimis, which allow UK brands to enter this market with low import costs, in addition to tax-friendly policies. There's a strong appetite for British goods, from fashion, food, and everything in between. Made in UK holds value in the region. And lastly, infrastructure. The Middle East geographic location serves as a natural logistics hub. Major air and sea freight routes connect through the Middle East on a daily basis. You have world-class connectivity through ports such as Jebel Ali and airports such as Dubai, which rank amongst the top in terms of cargo movement across the globe. So what is the size of the opportunity? If we go on to the next slide. Oh, sorry, next slide. Perfect. Now, by no means am I an economist, but what I will say is GDP collectively in the GCC exceeds $2 trillion. Naturally, as you'd expect, Saudi Arabia and UAE are the two that are really driving it. The GCC imports over $4 billion worth of goods annually, and a large portion of that is from international partners, such as those in the UK. E-commerce in the GCC is projected to hit $50 billion in 2025, and we see this continuing to grow from strength to strength. In the next 5 years, the projections are around about 20% growth, and if you compare that to somewhere like USA or Europe, it's around about 8% and 6% respectively. It's a huge opportunity, not only today, but moving forward. As it was mentioned by Pulse Global, you have a young population, it's mobile, it's high internet penetration with disposable income, and actually some of the highest spend in e-commerce per capita. Lastly, the infrastructure, tourism, retail, investments are all booming across the GCC states. The GCC states are heavily investing in giga projects and mega events, and we're seeing this today. If you look at Saudi Arabia, you have NEOM or the line, and also moving forward the FIFA World Cup. So this is a sign of a young population with huge growth, right? Not only today, but also in the next 5 years, and an actual government that is investing in the economy to connect the regions of the globe. If we move on to the next slide, we're looking to some of the sectors and where really do the opportunities sit. So of course we have fashion and retail, right? There's a huge demand for Western brands, and that continues to grow. We've seen companies such as Next, Gymshark, Hackett, and Barber, just to name a few, that have shown an appetite to enter this region. Health and wellness is another major growth area, with consumers seeking premium supplements, skincare, and clean label products. Tech, electronics, particularly British designed innovation, has a strong foothold within the region. And let us not overlook education, automotive, and even industrial goods, all supported by significant government spending and private sector demand. And we're seeing growth ultimately across all sectors, both B2B and B2C, from boutique e-commerce to global manufacturing, all establishing presence in the region. We roll on to the next slide. So some of the strategic advantages. Now, I highlighted a few earlier, but some that really stand out and some that I've been discussing this week being in the region with some of our customers. So you have 3 zones that offer a vast range of strategic and financial benefits, such as 100% foreign ownership and tax incentives. You have specialized zones that cater for specific industries such as media, tech, fashion, which ultimately encourage collaboration and a clustering of like-minded businesses. And of course, the logistics infrastructure, located near ports, seaports, airports, as well as highways, integrated with a customs landscape, which makes it ideal for global cross-border trade. In addition, the GCC can also act as a pivot into North Africa and the Levant. So what is the competitive advantage for UK exporters? If we move on to the next slide, I cannot emphasize enough the value of the UK as a brand in itself. The UK has strong global reputation, right? Not only for quality, but also for innovation. British goods serve as highly trusted, aspirational in the GCC, right? With strong UK to GCC bilateral trade existing, right? I think one of the stats was around 45 billion pound trade between the UK and GCC by the Department of International Transport. And actually, our governments today are currently in negotiations on an FTA. And we see that boosting further growth between the UK and the Gulf Cooperation Council in the coming period. So to highlight some of the considerations, because at this point it all seems extremely positive, if we move on to the next slide, we must be aware of not so much challenges or some of the weaker points, but I suppose considerations to take into play. So cultural difference and the importance of localization in order to respect local etiquette is key. Regulatory landscape vary between country to country within the region. Single strategy to enter the Middle East will not be successful. If you look at Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and you look at UAE, very different markets, very different population, very different consumer needs. So it's important to understand the territory in which you're looking to enter within the Middle East and within the GCC in specific. And of course, geopolitical tensions in the wider region can also pose risk. Now, of course, most importantly within our sector, what we see is once you enter the market, how do you ensure that you are providing a successful customer experience to your customers, to your suppliers across the supply chain? So to avoid potential delays and additional costs with areas like customs, with fulfillment, with distribution, it's important to consider the right logistics partner across the region that can serve you based on your needs. If we move into the next slide, I'll wrap up with some success that we've seen, and on the screen you'll see a sample of brands across various sectors that have had success in the Middle East, and we're seeing more and more enter as time moves forward. So for me, I suppose the way I would summarize this, right, is the GCC has high growth, right? It's a stable region, ideal for UK exporters. It's got strong infrastructure with favorable trade policies and a rising demand for British goods. The region offers major opportunities across sectors like fashion, healthcare, tech, as well as automotive. And of course, we have regulatory differences and cultural differences, but we believe that the benefits far outweigh the challenges. And with that said, I'll thank again the Chartered Institute of Exports for this opportunity to host this webinar, and I'll open the floor to any questions, and also turn my screen to include our Regional Commercial Director, Juris Tadros, who, apologies, was unable to use his own link due to technical difficulties.
Hello, hi everyone.
Thank you. Phil, back over to you.
Thank you very much, Omar. And welcome, excuse me, Sam. Welcome as well, Juris. Just a couple of questions from me before I hand over to Andy. We've obviously seen a lot about different sectors and sort of industries that are going there. Which of them are you seeing the most growth from in the Middle East?
We can see growth all across the segments and sectors, but what is staying on top is fashion and apparel. It's the most and highest growth it has year over year. Second is cosmetics. And it's cosmetics, perfumes from different origins as well to the GCC region in specific. Third is electronics and technology. So anything from gaming, from accessories, gadgets. This is the third biggest sector or segment. All of these three have major and high year-over-year growth in the GCC region.
And if I may add, just I suppose from a UK perspective, so we, and I'm sure my customer won't mind me saying, but we supported a brand Next, who British consumers will be very, very familiar with, in a journey to expand within the region, and we've seen phenomenal results within the last 12 months of growth by really penetrating this region, understanding the differences between the GCC markets. But also we've seen that with small children wear organisations, again out of the UK. So how do we look at not only entering the market, but positioning our products closer, that we're really able to compete in that local landscape? Healthcare and others, as Juris mentioned.
So I think even if you mentioned Next, Omar, it's published on their annual report, I think 2 weeks back, how big was the growth they saw once they moved to the GCC region. So even with an e-tailer or retailers in a size of Next, opening the region and coming to the region, it was a big milestone for them. That it is clearly mentioned in their annual report. That you can check the details.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The last question for hand over to Andy. If there's a business who is starting to look at the Middle East, what are the sort of 2 or 3 steps you recommend they take? At the start, we saw quite a few people either considering it or were trading a little bit. So what are these first 2 or 3 steps either of you recommend?
Yeah, I think, and this was mentioned earlier on this webinar, the first and most important one is choosing the right partner, either in your marketing, in your logistics, and logistics partner plays a big role in this region. So choose wisely your partner. And we usually say choose your partner based on advisor or consultant. So it's not just a supplier customer, but choose someone that will you can consult with. He knows the market. So from our side, for example, we have been here more than 43 years, so we know the market, and we will act as an advisor. What's the best? And there is no solution or one size fits all. It's different based on your industry, based on your segment and your product. So we will be the advisor for you, because we can give you the B2C directly from UK to the GCC. We can give you B2B to C. Omar mentioned earlier the free zones in Dubai and how advanced they are with the tax benefits. We can give you all the solutions, but at the end of the day, we will advise you what's the best for your business. The second one is localized content. So the GCC is maybe a small geography region, but you need to take care of each country separately. Saudi Arabia is totally different game than UAE. So Saudi population is much bigger, but the expats population is low. While if you come to UAE, it's 10 million people, the population, but 90% or plus is actually expats, and it's only 10% locals. So it's different from market to market, but so you need to take care of the localized content and your marketing strategy for the region.
Thank you very much. That's a very comprehensive answer. I'm just going to launch the second of our polls. So would you like to hear more from Aramex about their commercial offerings? If you do, we'll pass on your contact details and you can hear more. Just before we hand over to Andy, I'd like to thank both of the Aramex's panelists. You hear them later, of course. If you do have any questions, please feel free to drop it into the chat, using the questions function. And at the end, we've got a little Q&A section featured, and we will, of course, answer any questions you have. The last question from me before I hand over, you mentioned logistics partners. How important is it, sort of, to quantify, to have that important logistics partner, and how do you typically go about finding one?
Can you hear us, Phil?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So if I understood the question right, Phil, it's how important it is to choose the right logistics partner, right?
Correct, yeah.
So honestly, I think it's make it or break it for the logistics partner. Either if you want to come and establish your own business here, you need a good logistics partner to help you with the free zone registration, with the free zone export formalities and import formalities to the mainland of UAE or to Saudi, which we cover because all our infrastructure here in this part of the world, it's all in-house. We have the air-based facilities for customs clearance, all export formalities, and we are fully integrated with all customs and duties agencies in the 6 countries in the GCC. So why it's make it or break it? It's customers in this part of the world, maybe if I may say it, it's a little bit, they are spoiled. So the customer service or the satisfaction and how the journey it's offered, it means a lot for them. And this is one of the critical areas to value the value proposition that retailers might win the business over others, is how you design your customer journey, the customer satisfaction, the fast deliveries, the transit time, the experience, the communication, how you communicate with your customers. So all of this, how you provide a seamless experience for your customer, it has higher weight than any other factors here. It even has a higher weight than cost. So I usually in the GCC region, I say this customer is a cost sensitive or a service sensitive. And most of consumers here are actually service sensitive. They ask for the best service and they are willing to pay for it.
And if I may just add, I suppose a key consideration for any UK business looking to enter the region and further expand, a consideration that I would take is a partner that has presence across the region, across a full suite of products. And why is that important? We've seen it in the past where customers had entered maybe the UAE market and tried to then further expand into Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but there was limitations with their logistics provider that was unable to guide them accordingly. So I think just ensuring that there's presence across the region, across all products, is something very important.
Thank you very much, both of you. I'm going to give everyone another couple of seconds to answer. Thank you for everyone who already has. Closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for Aramex. We'll hear from them shortly. But on the next slide, I'd like to reintroduce Andy Bridges, who will be talking about some of the regulatory requirements that come and thread in the Middle East. Over to you, Andy.
Thanks very much, Phil, and thanks for the introduction, and thank you to Aramex as well. I mean, Umar and the team, fantastic presentation. That follow that, they say. So I'll give it a go. So from a Chartered Institute's point of view, I would say that what we really need to consider and take into consideration are some key points regarding what you can do, what you should do, and what you shouldn't do with regards if you're looking to open up relations and trade in the Middle Eastern region. We heard earlier on now, the Middle Eastern region is, it depends on people's individuals' outlooks, but it can be 20 different countries, city-states, or it could be the main focus of what, as the Aramex team have said, with regards to the 6 Gulf states. So in this presentation, I'm hoping to get a point across, or certainly discuss or open discussion points on the following topics, as you can see on the screen there. The regulatory and customs requirements for exports to the Middle East, the potential impact of the UK-GCC free trade agreement, not quite in operation yet. We have gone through about, I think it's 7 stages as of February this year of negotiations on this, but it is politically and geopolitically, it is actually very, very positive from all parties with regarding that. Started with Mr. Sunak's prime ministership, and now obviously on to Mr. Starmer's, but it is something that is going to benefit, I believe personally, benefit both the United Kingdom and the GCC Council. We're going to take a look at tips for benefiting from the free trade agreements, especially regarding compliance with origin rules. It's very, very important, probably even more so when we're flying that flag of, as Omar says, made in Great Britain. It does carry a significant message, made in Great Britain, and long may that continue, obviously. We'll obviously take a look at as well today, we're going to take a look at the detailed compliance requirements in different regions. So what's good for the goose doesn't necessarily mean it's good for the gander. Yes, there is a GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, but they all have their own, as the Aramex team have said, they all have their different nuances and regulations and rules for entry and export from the specific region. Just to touch briefly on the free trade agreement itself, negotiations actually started very positively June 2022. As I said, we're now up to the 7th stage of negotiations as of February 2025. And as I say, it does look very, very promising. The FTA, if it is, once it's fully signed, is expected, if you believe the gov.uk and the latest financial news clippings, is expected to increase trade between the United Kingdom and the Gulf states by 16%. And as I say, certainly looking at the figures mentioned, easily surpassing the 59 billion sterling that's already representing, already turning over. So the next slide, please, Ben. So let's take a look first at the regulatory requirements. Again, as already said, exporters must navigate some various regulatory requirements when trading with Middle Eastern countries. This does include getting an understanding of export licensing, something that we can help you with here at the Chartered Institute, documentation and any necessary certifications that will enable you to be compliant, certainly with local laws and obviously with international trade regulations. It's absolutely crucial when you're dealing with a trader in a different country for the first time that you've got all of the regulations, all of the documentation, and all the rules and regulations in place so you're aware of everything before you actually start the trading. So the exporting goods involves meeting several critical requirements, again, to ensure that smooth legal trade operations. So they are understanding export licensing, mandatory part of international trade, ensuring that goods leaving the country comply with legal standards, ensure you've got the necessary documentation in place. Again, accurate documentation is key to passing customs efficiently. The last thing that you need is hold up at customs. It is time. Time is money, as they say. As I say, all the downtime that you've got with your goods is doing damage to your promises, damage to your reputation. So you need everything in place. Make sure that it is as smooth a transaction as possible. And obviously ensure that in some cases there are going to be separate certifications required. We're going to touch on the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and their specific requirements a little bit later on in the presentation. Hopefully, by following those 3 basic steps is going to help some way to avoid rejection and obviously not only avoid rejection for the export from the United Kingdom, but certainly the import or export into and out of the Middle Eastern states. Next slide, please, Ben. So we've already touched on the impact of the UK-GCC free trade agreement. It is very much a priority of the current political regimes, both in the GCC and with the United Kingdom. The proposed free trade agreement itself could significantly influence any trade dynamics for the region. It aims to reduce tariffs, eliminate the trade barriers, and promote economic cooperation, not only for goods, tangible and intangible, but for services as well. Hopefully, if put in place, it could enhance the competitiveness of the UK exporters in the Middle Eastern market. There are priority sectors such as agri-food, digital trade and the environment, and as we heard earlier on, the population is a young population, it's a proactive population in the Gulf states, and as I say, they're working very positively to look at these priority sectors. And then something else that we need to focus on is the environment. It is a unique environment in the Middle East, and also the ever improving human rights. These sectors are expected to benefit again from reduced tariffs and improved market access if fully ratified. Next slide, please, Ben. So again, continuing in the vein of the free trade agreement, as we've said, it can offer preferential tariffs. It can make it cheaper for exporters in the United Kingdom to enter new markets, but you do need to have a very good understanding and some very good contacts, knowledgeable contacts within the Middle Eastern region to allow you to do this. We touched on the previous slide about the agri-food sector, and it's very much influenced by the various factors that are including climate change and technological advancements, particularly around AI. The global agri-food market has grown significantly, rising from US $8.3 trillion in 2021, and is expected by 2029 to be somewhere in the region of 12.5 trillion US dollars. This is driven predominantly by this young population and the population growth that is, and the ingenuity of the peoples of these regions with regards to the industries that they want to promote and they want to succeed in. Food security and geopolitics, such as the war in Ukraine, unfortunately have issued new challenges and uncertainties to the sector. However, everybody is working, that you can see, is working proactively to ensure that this can certainly be worked around in its present in the present climate. Next slide, please, Ben. Touching on rules of origin, very, very important now in today's trade, world international trade, import, export. We've already touched on that magic statement of made in Great Britain and how that is going to hold a significant amount of weight with regards to your movement or your applied movement into trade with the Middle Eastern regions. But rules of origin in its own right, very important. Obviously, if you're going to claim these preferential tariffs if a free trade agreement is fully ratified, let's hope it's when a full trade agreement is ratified, all exporters from the United Kingdom must comply with rules of origin, which obviously determine the country of origin of the goods. Now, this is either obviously rules of country of origin of manufacture, it could be preferential origin, and it could be preferential tariffs. It gives you the opportunity to enter into preferential tariffs should you be successful. This will require proper documentation and proof of production processes that are agreed upon standards in the FTA. They will be different per region. Rules of origin, as you're probably aware, used to determine if products are eligible for duty-free or reduced duties under free trade agreement rules, even though they may contain non-originating components. Again, these rules can be very detailed and specific, varying from agreement to agreement and from product to product. Governments can establish customs rules and regulations to determine a single territory or country of origin, to apply the tariffs, sanitary and phytosanitary restrictions, taxes and other measures. Okay, so we do need to comply with rules of origin statements and rules, basically. Next slide, please, Ben. Very important, if you are successful in opening up trade in the Middle East, in the Middle Eastern regions, very, very important that you've got either the people in place or even yourself in place to monitor the ever-changing environment that can affect any region, really, not just the GCC. The importance of continuous monitoring is, as it says on the slide there, regular updates on regulations and essentials to exporters to remain compliant. Very proactive approach and minimizes risks associated with non-compliance. Focus on customs regulations. Okay, so understand the customs rules is vital for a smooth cross-border transaction. Changes can impact shipment processes significantly. So stay on top of the UK global tariff, take a focus of the region that you're exporting to, and ensure that what was good for you yesterday is good for you today, basically. We've already touched on adapting to the tariff changes. We're in such a volatile environment at the moment with regarding tariff changes. It's keeping everybody on their toes with what's happening in North America and the retaliatory from a number of countries. and then obviously try and stay up to date with regards to trade agreement updates. Okay, so as I said, it's stage 7 at the moment. Don't know how many more there is to go, but as I say, looking forward to the day that that FTA does become a fully ratified free trade agreement. Next slide, please, Ben. So the next slide or two, we're just going to take a quick look at some of the regional compliance requirements. As you can see on the screen, there are different requirements for different countries. The examples that I'm using there, United Arab Emirates has introduced regulations on product labeling, which is specific specific for them for compliance with these regulations. Again, it's absolutely essential for market entry. Qatar, they require certain certifications for all imported goods. Again, having a good understanding of these requirements, or using a freight forwarder or a broker or an intermediary that can help you, that is familiar with these nuances and these regulations, is certainly going to help you going forward. And obviously, I would definitely, it goes without saying, research on local compliance and requirements is crucial for your business. Don't rely on a third party. Yes, use them and utilize them. Obviously, get your money's worth from an expert, but as I say, try and stay on top of the compliance specifics yourself. Definitely, there's nothing worse than being unaware of regulatory changes when you've been dealing with a country or countries for so long, and then overnight their rules change. So try and stay on top of the changes yourself. Next slide, please, Ben. I did say that we would look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has probably got a unique scenario for the region with regards, it will require a certificate of conformity to accompany any products, and they must meet KSA, or Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, specific standards. Okay, this is not protectionist. This is just simply the need for Saudi Arabia to ensure that the goods that are crossing into over their borders is of the highest quality. They insist on the quality, obviously. But as I say, make sure that not only all the documentation that you've got in place with regards to your shipments and your licensing, ensure that if you are dealing with Saudi Arabia, that you do have this C requirement. Other countries have similar or different requirements. We did look at the labeling for the UAE earlier on, and as I say, there is, even though they are all in the Gulf, the GCC, it doesn't mean to say that they all follow the same course. You do need to be up to date on the individual changes that you may need to make when moving from one Middle Eastern country to another. Next slide, please. So that kind of brings us now onto some of the challenges in exporting. Again, the Aramex team, they've absolutely done a fantastic presentation. They have gone through the pluses, they've gone through the negatives, so the do's, the don't do's, and whatever use. But just to follow on from that, the challenges that you can expect if you are starting out new in the business with the Middle East, as I say, is go through these key points. So ensure that you're familiar with the customs procedures that are in place. Okay. Make sure that you are aware of any perceived barriers with trade, okay? Geopolitical events, so instability and diplomatic tensions can disrupt trade patterns and increase costs. Supply chain resilience, a good supply chain logistical representation in the region is like gold dust. It really is. It is worth its weight in gold. If you've got somebody that's familiar with moving goods in and out of the Gulf regions or the Middle Eastern regions, then you are well on the way to being successful in moving your goods across borders. And also think about the fiscal constraints. The UK economy faces a sluggish growth, renewed inflationary pressures, and a tight fiscal constraint. This does limit the government's ability to, or has limited the government's ability to support exporters in the past. But the positive from that is the Custom Spring Budget 2023 did make things a little bit easier for exporters in the United Kingdom, and hopefully, again, the introduction of a free trade agreement is going to go some way to improving the I don't like to use the word sluggish again, but as I say, the growth, as a faster rate of growth as there is at the moment. Next slide, please. So what can we do? There are several organisations out there that can actually offer support to exporters, including government trade departments. So the DBT, for example, Department of Business and Trade, very, very proactive in helping companies set up and introducing them into new areas. There's export councils and there's also industry associations. Utilize them. If you're going to make a move into the Middle Eastern market, utilize the subject matter experts. They can provide invaluable information about the compliance requirements, the market insights, and above all, networking. So not just dealing with one person whilst you're over there or one company whilst you're over there. These people will actually help you promote you and promote your product across the much broader region. Inventory management, so balancing, having enough stock to meet demand without the risk of overstocking, which can lead to increased costs. They'll help you with that. Diversify your supply base, rely on multiple suppliers to avoid vulnerabilities in the supply chain. Invest in technology, implement IoT devices, so Internet of Things basically, and tracking systems for real-time visibility into inventory levels. I would imagine that the majority of the state-of-the-art ports and airports and seaports that are in the Middle Eastern region, that is going to be par for the course anyway. And as I say, there's certainly no slouches when it comes to AI and digital technology. But again, use these organizations and industry sector experts to strengthen your supplier relationships, and also have a plan B. Try and have a plan B for disruptions. Contingency plans to respond to any expected events and maintain operational functionality. There's probably about 100 million people in Spain and Portugal at the moment that are not benefiting from the government's having a plan in place for the massive blackout that they had yesterday. So as I say, yes, that's on a large scale. No, that's not in the Gulf region, but it does go to show plan for disruptions. You don't know what's going to happen and when and where. So just be prepared. Next slide, please. So again, coming to the end of the presentation now, but as I say, what we'd like to do now is just to give you hopefully a future glimpse of what trade with the Middle East is likely to be shaped by the evolving regulations, the economic shifts, and the advancements in technology. Try and stay informed about these trends, and will certainly enable exporters to adapt their strategies and remain competitive in the region. So take a look at the evolving regulation, take a look at the economic shifts, and obviously, I mean, more than anything, take a look at the technological advancements. Forever moving forward, never backwards, hopefully. And the next slide, please. So the conclusions from today, or certainly from my presentation, is that, as I say, I'd like to think that we've given you a brief understanding in the regulations of dealing with the Middle East, giving you an update on the UK-GCC free trade agreements, the implications, and how hopefully it's going to open up new opportunities, and as it says there, reduce the trade barriers. Hopefully going to show you best compliance practices, implement the best practices for compliance, ensures again smoother operations, and leverage your resources. Utilize the people, utilize the subject matter experts, get them on board, get them on your side, and take heed of what they offer, the information of what they offer. That brings me to the end. So thanks very much, Phil, and thanks everybody else for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. So running over by a couple more minutes. So on the next slide, if I have the final of our polls, what sector best describes your business? Food and drink, manufacturing, services, transport or logistics or other? Please do send the chat. We've run a little bit over time, so thank you all for your patience. I'd just like to say thank you in particular to Aramex for this webinar. We very much appreciate the time and effort they're taking in preparing it. If you'd like to hear more, please do get in touch and we'll pass them on to you. We hope this has been an informative and useful use of your time. If you do have any feedback, please keep an eye out on the post-webinar survey. We do take your feedback into account at all points for shaping our future webinar. And as stated, the recording and slides will be sent out in a post-webinar survey. Okay, I'm just going to close the results there. All that's left for me at this stage is to say thank you for both myself, Andy, and our representatives from Aramex. Apologies there won't be enough time for a Q&A section, but just very quickly, we have a workshop on manufacturing, the impact of automotive and advanced manufacturing, which will teach you on managing material costs and reshoring decisions. Please do get in touch with the email there. Otherwise, thank you much for attending. I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thanks, everyone.